right, so we got some breaking news on Alex Jones. Alex Jones, back in November, was found liable in a civil court for his defamation against the Sandy Hook survivors' families, which ended up leading to them being constantly on the run and receiving death threats, because basically what Alex Jones was saying was he was lying and saying that it was a false flag to try to take people's guns. So essentially, the massacre was faked in order to provide a sort of, casus belli, if you will, for taking all of the guns. And so this led to the families of survivors of the massacre, being harassed, being sent, having to move and be on the run. Think about that. It's families of the massacre of the survivor, families of the dead and survivors. It's really crazy. It's really crazy to see. And so he was held liable in the civil court, and so he has now refused to show up for a deposition. So it says Infowars host held in contempt of court for skipping Sandy Hook deposition. Now it's not a criminal court, so being contempt of court, he's not being arrested and held. This is the years-long legal battle between far-right conspiracy theorist and Infowars host Alex Jones and the families of victims killed in the Sandy Hook massacre continued today, with Mr. Jones being held in contempt of court. Mr. Jones was found guilty of defamation and multiple lawsuits last year after he falsely said the 2012 school shooting that left 26 dead was a, quote, a giant hoax. The case are now headed to jury trials to determine damages. The legal proceedings were thrust back into the spotlight last week when Mr. Jones failed to appear twice for a deposition that he had sought to delay because he was too sick to attend, despite the fact that he continued hosting his Infowars show. At issue in today's virtual hearing, which took place at 2 p.m. EST, was the plaintiff's motion to hold Mr. Jones in contempt of court for dodging the deposition. Hours before the hearing, Mr. Jones offered to settle the cases by giving a, quote, heartfelt apology and $120,000 payout per plaintiff. That offer was rejected by the families. Judge Barbara Bellis found him in contempt today and issued a $25,000 per day fine until he sits for 2 days of deposition in Connecticut, upon which the fines will be refunded. And so he's not being arrested. This is not a criminal case, and so I guess criminal and civil contempt are different. But it's saying here that the fines will be refunded. So I guess, you just take on, you are issued that $25,000 fine. If you can't pay the fine, are you still refunded? Like, I don't really understand exactly fully how this works. Assuming you're not paying $25,000 a day, you're being charged sort of in like this, you don't come up, well, $25K you owe. Don't come in 2 days, well, that's $50K you owe when you finally show up. So assuming that it's more than he has, is it still going to be refunded? I'm not really seeing, if the fines are being refunded, I'm not even really sure how this is even like much of a penalty. But this is a civil case. Obviously, like criminal contempt of court, I think would have you arrested and having to pay fines, which is way more serious. So it's not as serious. But he must be looking at paying out a shit ton of money, is what I'm thinking. I'm not a lawyer, obviously. I'm not a lawyer or anything like that. I don't know. But why he wouldn't show up? Maybe he's tired of it, or straight up he might just be like, oh shit, like I'm gonna have to pay out a ton of money, like a lot, like millions of dollars in damages. He was found liable. It's pretty tough to be found liable in civil court, even for slander or defamation. And so he's offering to pay $120K payout per plaintiff. I don't know how many plaintiffs are in the case. But I think it was reported he has a shit ton of money, or he made a shit ton of money from selling those the supplement pills. They probably didn't have much input cost to make them, honestly. It's just like, I don't know, some water or something in the pills. It wasn't anything real, and it was marked up at like crazy price, like $60 a dollar. So probably very high profit margins. I don't even know how much he's splitting with any other agency or anything like that. I'm assuming he wasn't doing it in-house, but who knows. Apparently he was making, I think, like millions of dollars from that, so I don't know if he still has money stashed from that or not. But it does look like he's going to be forced to pay a shit ton of money, and I'm guessing that's why he did it. But he did shows. He looks like complete shit, by the way. But he did his own show, and he didn't show up. He tried to claim that there was some kind of undisclosed medical issue, but that was, of course, sort of debunked by him doing his own show, right? And so yeah, hopefully they really fuck this guy for literally everything that he has, for the illegal shit that he has done. He has done obviously seriously illegal defamation and slander that has resulted in, I think it meets, obviously it's been it's already been deemed to have been in breach of law, and so I'm guessing it met all of the requirements for, civil slander defamation. And so now they're just deciding through a jury trial, I believe they're going to decide, okay, how much money does he owe in damages? And so that's what's going on. He's deciding right now to skip the deposition entirely. And this is probably going to be a long, drawn out process, but I hope they fuck this guy for literally everything that he has.